Who is this guy? So my name is Mike Sale. I am fortunate enough to lead the SE team here at Zpe Systems. Our team runs all the way from Latin America, obviously Americas into EMEA and even APAC. So we've got a fairly large team to support all of our customers across the world. Before here, I was at Cradlepoint. Before that, HPE, Aruba, Motorola, a smaller company called Trapeze that Juniper bought, and before that, 3Com. So I've pretty much lived my life kind of on the edge, doing whether it's edge access or edge security, and that's pretty much what we do at ZPE with some data center stuff thrown in from our roots. So speaking of ZPE, did the slide change for you, Ron?
Yes, it did.
Awesome. Thank you. So ZPE was founded back in 2013 by a couple of engineers who are still running the company today. So our founders bootstrapped the company, and we were very, very fortunate to have some really big hyperscalers notice us early on. And so for the first several years of our life, we focused on hyperscale data centers. We are in some of the largest data centers in the world. And we support those guys on a daily basis for some really some what I would consider critical infrastructure applications and needs. And I'm going to talk a little bit about holistically what we do and how we help you. But I want to talk really, you know, I'm a big guy in what your goals are. I'm goal based. I want to know how I'm going to help my customer. I want to know what my customer needs from us to help them. And so today I'm going to talk about 5 ways we can really help you. So physical security, cables can be your friend, and that's through out-of-band access. And a lot of people don't really know what out-of-band access is. For the data center, out-of-band access has been in use in a long time, not as much in the enterprise and the edge. Out-of-band access is, simply put, it's a cable to a serial port or USB, so that if your network goes down, you have access to your network devices. And network devices can include servers and storage arrays. So, you know, a lot of people think that out of band is you've got a VLAN and so your packets aren't touching. And for us, out of band is true out of band. If your network goes down, you can still use us to get to those devices. Some logical security, the ability to manage your environmental visibility and control, user, role, device access, tech stack OS. So the ability to automate and stay up to date without stress. So we all know, a lot of us have been doing this a long time. And one of the reasons we don't always update when we want to is because we have concerns that the network's going to go down, that you're going to cause more problems than you solve. So having a device like ours in the network gives you the ability to add, update, and change, and most importantly, undo. So something goes sideways, you put in a BGP route that brings your network down, you can quickly undo it. And that's whether you're automating it or whether you're using that serial interface to get into the equipment. We also help a lot with your edge compute environment. So our platform is a Linux-based platform. It's updatable from the cloud. And what that means for you is that if, as an example, I use Log4j, a lot of places had trouble when Log4j came out updating things on the edge. And I'll give you an example. We have a customer I was talking to the other day. He has to put a Windows server at every one of his edge branch locations. Problem with that is he doesn't have a place to put it. So he had to go buy a server, he had to build the environment, he had to put Windows on there. And when Log4j came out, he had hundreds of these things that he had to update. And it was a lot of work, and it took more than a day, I promise you. With us, our customers were able to push out an update within a day and get those edge devices secured. And then I'll also be talking about network security applications. So the ability to virtualize those applications, put them on an edge environment so you don't have to wait for stock, so you can put multiple edge devices or edge applications in one box, and it gives you the ability to be a little more flexible and quick. I'll talk about those use cases. Oh, excuse me, I think I paused the screen. Hang on a sec, Ron. I think I paused the screen. Did it pause the screen there?
I believe you did pause it. We're still on the physics. There we go. Okay.
Thank you. We'll pop it back out again. Okay. So back again. Can you see the wheel?
Yeah, it's all good.
Fantastic. Thank you. So how do we do this, and how do we help you with those 5 things? And it starts with the Node Grid OS. So the Node Grid operating system has been around since the very beginning. It's a hardened Linux operating system. And essentially, it gives us the ability to do all the things I'm going to talk about in the use cases following these next two slides. So serial console, PDU, UPS availability. That's how we started. Automating devices through the serial console, the network as well, and managing those devices with PDU and UPS management. We switch over and it's a fully routable, functioning switch and router, BGP, OSPF, RIP if you need it. So fully route and switch available at the edge with an LTE modem in it, so you can move traffic through it and manage devices again outside your network if needed. Because we use x86 processors, we can do multi-core, lots of power. So it's not just the operating system. You've got to have the hardware to run this. So we're little mini edge compute devices that you can put, again, when we'll talk about it in a minute, you can stack virtualized applications on the edge as well. Server storage, obviously. And then because it's a virtualized environment, you've got things like next generation firewalls you can add penetration testing tools, troubleshooting tools. So as an example, one of our customers was talking about adding tools in his Linux kit to manage his network and his devices, all doable with our platform. So how do we make all this magic happen? And it starts with the management. And so you start with a couple different management platforms. So Node Grid Manager allows you to manage devices with single pane of glass, everything in your network right in one spot. And it gives you the ability to do that on-prem. So a lot of our data center customers, they don't want those management packets leaving the network. They want everything right there where they can see them. So we've got Node Grid Manager for those guys. The second way you can manage the platform is with Zpe Cloud. Zpe Cloud is for our branch, our edge customers. They've got distributed devices, whether it's an ATM or a convenience store or a bank. They're able to manage all those devices from one pane of glass in the cloud. And then we've got Zpe Private Cloud, which is on-prem cloud in beta right now, which is on the way. And we roll down to kind of that guest application. I mentioned it at the very beginning. We have the ability to host Docker and virtual machine apps. So as an example, if you need to put a Fortinet or a Palo Alto firewall out there, need to do penetration testing with Horizon 3, those all sit on our platform and can run in a virtualized environment. We've also got Docker applications. So as an example, it goes back to those some of those network troubleshooting tools. You've got, if they're in Docker, you can use Docker. That's the virtualized environment. The OS itself is that Linux core I talked about earlier, the ability to do SD-WAN, out-of-band management, the ability to be a router or a firewall. Obviously, we support, because it's a fully functioning router firewall, we do IPsec tunneling and WireGuard back to a central location if you need it, and clearly networking. So from a hardware perspective, what do we do that helps you? Serial interfaces to manage devices through serial ports, the ability to run as a network device, the ability to act as a small storage device and compute device. We have 4G, 5G, LTE on board, so it's not a dongle, it's on board and controllable. And then we've also got added sensors. So it's a Linux platform, so that gives you the ability to add sensors. So door sensors, heat sensors, fire and smoke, anything you'd want in a data center. We have one customer, they were having outages on their power supplies, and they're not very smart power supplies. And what they realized was that in these remote sites, the filters were getting really, really filthy and nobody was checking them. So we can actually put an airflow sensor in there and bring that back and have an alert on it if the customer needs it. So there's a lot of use cases for sensors that you don't even think about until you get into a platform like this. And what's that give you? So, at the end of the day, what you guys care about, I think, is the customer infrastructure and how we support your security needs. So security devices, which we'll talk about, routers, compute, some storage, some ability to manage power and UPS. And I'll go into how we actually do that and what that looks like. So from a data center perspective, in those hyperscalers and even smaller data centers, we are top of rack, end of row, giving you the ability to do full end-to-end automation. And what that means for you, so security, I talked about physical security earlier. You have buildings you don't want people going in and out of for no reason. If you can connect to all of the devices in your tech stack without sending somebody out there, number one, it gives that person the ability to manage things remotely. You don't have to get into them physically. It also keeps people out of buildings that may or may not need to be there. So it gives you the ability to manage things securely and remotely. And and automate them. Branch, remote, office, and retail. So this is a really classic example of how we help our customers now. This is a typical tech stack, right? You've got several devices in there. You've got a firewall, you've got web managed switches, you may have a few servers, you've got the APC, you've got a couple, you may even have video in there. And the problem with that is there's a couple things. So number one, if any one of those goes down, you're rolling a truck. You're absolutely trying to figure out how to roll a truck or get a person there. Or unfortunately, again, from a security perspective, you've got some poor cashier out there unplugging things or pushing buttons. You've got people who aren't authorized to be in there playing with gear, and you've got to rely on them to either turn a power supply on or off or boot the entire tech stack. Where we fit in is we actually sit right in the middle and we connect to all of the devices in the tech stack for you. So that gives you the ability through cellular or another link. We support Wi-Fi to come in to the device and talk to all of the devices in your tech stack. So USB, Ethernet, you can do the power, IPMI serial interfaces. We also, as an example, I use Meraki because they've got a great product that we fit into. The web interface on Meraki, we plug right into it and you can manage that through our device as well. So a lot of different ways to manage different products and give your environment a little more flexibility. The add-on to that is that's all just management traffic. So you're managing traffic through our device. The next use case is a little bit more complicated, but it gives you the ability to really reduce your tech stack from a management point of view and an ease of use point of view. So if you look on the left, this is a really classic use of the entire tech stack and the ability to virtualize your security platform. So because we're a router and a switch, and we have switch ports and USB ports and serial ports, you can take the router and the SD-WAN, and in this case, they're now virtualized on the platform. So you've got your SD-WAN, you've got an LTE connection. LTE connection comes through your SD-WAN, which is managing it, through the Palo Alto firewall, and then out to the rest of your network. So what we're doing there is we're what we call compressing the stack. You've got your router, your SD-WAN, you've got your cellular all on board, you've got your switch on board, you've got your router on board, you've even got an automation and jump box server on board. So anything that sits in that network that you need to talk to, we can give you a platform to do that, and we can do it securely. This is another great example of how we help folks be secure in a physical and an operational sense. So this is a warehouse environment. These warehouses get stood up, and there's a couple issues. Number one, you don't want to ship people out every time you do this. It's a lot of work. But number two, you don't want to pre-program devices. So, and what I mean by that is if you work on a device and you pre-program it in the warehouse or even on site and you ship it out, it has a lot of critical information for your network, for your company. And a lot of the bigger companies are really security conscious in that area. So we do what's called zero touch provisioning for these guys. They call us the seat of life. And essentially what we do is we sit at the top of the tech stack. When a new warehouse gets put up, we get shipped with a tech stack. We sit at the top of the tech stack. They have smart hands that come out. They've got the diagram, the network diagram, the cabling diagram. They build everything up, and then they turn everything on. And we do zero touch provisioning. So what happens is our device goes, hey, listen, I need to know who I am. So it reaches out to the cloud, and the cloud comes back and says, hey, your device, well, actually we say we're device 1922. What am I supposed to be doing? And the cloud says, well, listen, 1922, this is your configuration. So 1922 configures itself and says, okay, so now what am I supposed to do? Well, 1922, you have these 6 or 7 devices, whatever they may be, whether it's a firewall, a switch, a router, a server, they're all sitting in the tech stack. It's your job to configure those and manage those. And so at that point, we start downloading configurations for those devices. Again, those devices are all blank. They haven't had to do anything, and they're shipped like that on purpose. So the devices come up. One by one, we configure them, whether it's because we're serial connected or IPMI, whatever that connection may be, or even via Ethernet through the back, through the network port. We configure everything, everything starts to come up. At that point, if something were to go sideways, you still have that console port access. So you have the ability to now go, okay, so this router, this switch, this server went sideways. How do I get in and fix it? What do I do? So all of the front end's automated, but if something happens on the back end, you can go in and manually start to troubleshoot it. In addition, you see that they use, you've got the Docker containers there, where there's a lot of troubleshooting tools available. So it gives them the ability from start to finish to use our platform as the seed of life to bring the entire tech stack up. And then throughout the tech stack's lifespan, we are also able to then manage those devices, add security patches. Again, if something goes sideways, you add you do some automation. The automation creates an issue. Maybe it's a software issue with the platform itself. You can revert it with a touch of a button if you've got the automation set up correctly. So it really gives you a powerful tool to first bring everything up and then lifecycle manage the product. And then finally, just a couple slides so you can see the hardware itself. We've got on the left serial console, so 16 ports to 96 ports of serial connectivity. So that's mostly for our data centers, node grid manager, single pane of glass to manage everything. Then you've got the remote branch and edge, 2 ports to 80 ports. You've got things like ATMs, remote branch offices, places where you need a network route and switch, great platform for that. The ability to manage everything through the cloud. And then obviously I mentioned earlier sensors and that can be applied as well. So doors for security, heat for fire, smoke, all the things you'd want to secure the physical environment. And finally, I think I talked a little fast. I'm hoping I got through in your 20 minutes, Ron, but we've got this great blueprint. I'd ask everybody to take a look at. It's a best practices blueprint for network automation. We've been doing network automation since the very beginning, out of band and in band if necessary. And we've got a blueprint to help you guys out there as well. So thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it, Ron, and everybody who's listening.